starts off, Louisiana, D.C.'s clout shaky at best. Don't tell me we don't have as much pull as we think we do in D.C. anymore.
Well, there's a popular newspaper in D.C. called The Hill that does an annual or a regular clout index. And the most recent rankings, we moved from number 4 to number 30, and they attribute that largely to the loss of U.S. Senator Mary Landrieu, who had a chairmanship and seniority behind her and was kind of the ultimate pork barrel politician. And they say that it would have been worse if it wouldn't have been for Steve Scalise, who's the number 3 position in the House as the whip. So looking ahead, I'm starting to wonder exactly what's next for DC's clout, for Louisiana's clout in DC, because obviously Senator David Vitter is running for governor. He's in a very good position. If there's any such thing as a sure thing in this race, you'd have to pick him out of the 4. So if we lost Vitter, we're losing a chairman. He's a ranking member on 2 subcommittees. But then we move into next year, and it looks like Charles Bustani, the congressman from the Acadiana region, and John Fleming, the congressman from northwest Louisiana, would both run for that spot, which would open up 2 House seats. So there's no guarantee that either of them would win the Senate seat. Treasurer John Kennedy's running as well. So that's all to say that potentially, maybe, we could end up losing within the next year and a half. We could end up losing a senior U.S. senator, and we could lose 2 veteran members of Congress from Louisiana. To take it one step further, I think we can all agree that Steve Scalise has survived the controversy in Louisiana that came out at the turn of the year of him speaking to a group of white supremacists and the links to David Duke. But in D.C., it's still very much an issue. Just a few weeks ago, the White House press secretary brought it up and then kind of indirectly pointed to Steve Scalise in a conversation about the Confederate flag. And this is at a time when Republicans are trying to reach out to minority voters. So Scalise not only has to be reelected by voters, but reelected to that leadership position. So that's all to say that, things could get darker in terms of clout.
Well, Jeremy Alford joining us here from LAPolitics.com, and thinking about that, I think Scalise can ultimately survive as pretty much as long as he wants to coming out of the district he's in. He's in about as safe a seat as it gets. And to be quite fair, I'm not sure that all of that Duke controversy hurt him a lick in his district, to be quite honest. On the other hand, and I agree with you because I'm one of the 6 people in Louisiana that reads The Hill, along with yourself. If Vitter goes to the governor's mansion and you're likely to lose at least 1 congressman, possibly 2, Louisiana could drop well below 30. And this is amazing because historically Louisiana has always had a very strong D.C. presence.
Yeah, that's true. And this conversation tends to be cyclical. We had a majority leader with Hale Boggs, and Russell Long was a big influencer on the tax committee during his time, and we lost
Bob
him.
Livingston.
You move into the era of Bob Livingston and Vincent Buddy Tozan and John Breaux, John McCrary, of course. This conversation tends to go around and around, but it seems like if we do lose these three guys, that we may be starting out from one of the lowest points in the Clout Index in recent memory.
The Clout Index, Jeremy Alford, I don't pay that much attention to things like this because, like John says, he's one of the few people that reads The Hill. I don't read The Hill. And as far as I was concerned, Mary Landrieu was a do-nothing person as far as I'm concerned in Washington, but that's just personal belief.
Yeah, I think one thing we failed to mention, too, in this conversation is that Congressman Ralph Abraham, who's kind of made a big splash coming out, especially on Veterans Affairs, he's promised to only serve 3 terms. So he's going to be gone in, 4.5 years, I guess. 5.5 years.
Yeah.
That'll be another seat filled by freshmen, presumably. But yeah, I guess, what does this all really mean? With seniority and chairmanships, you get to direct money and brick and mortar projects to your state. You sometimes get to convince high-level officials to visit your state to put eyes on a disaster or maybe a big economic development project. I guess it depends on how you look at it. Some of it is just silly politics. I think some of it is important. I think it's important to have senior officials in D.C. from Louisiana.
Well, and Jeremy, I think you're right. I mean, there's a such thing as institutional wisdom that oftentimes is lacking. There's constituent services. And I can tell you this, there is a lot of sort of a learning curve that once you get into office, it takes you, particularly in Congress, it takes you a couple of terms to kind of get your feet on the ground, to know exactly where you're going to be. And even Ralph Abraham, and I agree with you, Ralph has made, Dr. Abraham has made a tremendous splash right away, particularly in the veterans area. But that's one of 20, 30 sectors that we've got to have a presence in. And certainly, losing expertise, institutional wisdom, it'll make constituent services that much more difficult to fill.
You were talking about Jeremy Alford is our guest from lawpolitics.com. Jeremy, earlier we were talking about David Vitter. I have to see that the story we've got today sees he raised another $1.3 million in this quarter. And, if money won the election, it's like he's so far in the front, nobody can beat him. But we know sometimes it's not all about money.
Yeah, I mean, look, between David Vitter's personal campaign and his allied super PAC, they have $9.4 million to spend over the next 3 months. To put that in perspective, that is more money than some presidential candidates have behind their bid, including Bobby Jindal. But it's amazing. I mean, the guy is a financial juggernaut in this race. I think the big question is, how is he going to spend it? How is the super PAC going to spend it? I don't think anyone in this race is going to be able to come anywhere close to that total. We're well on our way to the most expensive governor's race in Louisiana history. And really, it's 96 days out. Barely anyone's paying attention. But, the campaigns tell me that the media buys are going to start showing up in mid-August, in some cases sooner. So I think that's all about to change. But Vitter is the heavy in this race, according to the polls in the fundraising arena. I think it goes without saying that he's probably one of the better political strategists of his generation in Louisiana politics.
Jeremy Alford's been our guest from lawpolitics.com. Jeremy, we're going to have to run. We've got Todd Starnes coming up. We appreciate you taking the time to visit with us today.
Yep.
Well, thank you. I'll take care.
Man.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Jeremy.
529 at KPEL. We got Todd coming up next. Stick around.